Yeah, bourbon and coke. Or whatever, I don't mind.
Hold the bourbon?
Huh?
Hold the bourbon?
Yeah, coke will be fine. Thank you. Ooh, it's like 60 cents. And it's just like last night, it happens at night. Something's falling off. Sitting and I wake up and I go to my life. Because when I wake up, I'm in the habit of making my white below before I open. And I got something last night, I got it. I was doing this thing. A little bit later, it was stinking a little bit off. And it's just, it's really good out. It's clean out. is Lizzo, and it's still I thought I was going to be.
She basically
Oh, my choice.
if you work it, you get 10% off anyway. You work it, you get 10% off.
That's all the joke about. I thought there might be an issue with me doing that. So I say you can. I think so. I got for some reason the first stream failed. It's giving me a little bit of grief. And yet I have plenty of speed. Didn't get on it. Let's see on YouTube. I sent the link out there, but it is live as well. So let's see what it does here. That's that loading there. All right. I'm a bit off right, what are they doing at the moment? We've got room boys on. Oh, they're different handhelds. Just slowing my own transmission down there. I really don't like tablets. I try to go to YouTube on the tablet. I don't know if YouTube's going to, as I was trying to search for live, if you go to YouTube and you go, with it to live, that's live. So I usually sort of go into my own thing.
All right. Okay. All righty. Are we all ready? Welcome, everyone. We're just finishing things up. Welcome to the Chamber of Commerce, Bradfield. For being here tonight. This is a really important occasion because we've got this thing called an election coming up, and it's all hands on deck. So whether you're here with us in person here at the Green Gate, or you're streaming over the live stream, we welcome you for an event that promises to be inspiring and engaging. I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. Oh. Thank you. And acknowledge their connection to land, water and community, and pay respects to elders past and present. The Ku-ring-gai Chamber of Commerce is committed to supporting small businesses through networking, education and advocacy across the district, from Wahroonga to Roseville. We aim to foster connections, encourage growth and be a voice for local business community and community in general for the 3 tiers of government. We're honoured to welcome our special guest tonight, Mr. Alistair Henskins, the member for Wahroonga. Ku-ring-gai Council Mayor, where are you, Christine? Oh, up the back. Christine Kay. Councillors Indu Baracharian. Where's Indu? There. And Councillor Matt Devlin. Where's Matt? Where are you? Okay, thank you for your support. And it's really important that that you're here for our community. Okay, the Chamber recently has gone through a revitalisation program, and now we're hosting 2 events every month. And these events have a focus on professional development. Our new Memorandum of Understanding with Ku-ring-gai Council has strengthened our commitment to collaboration and local economic growth. We're also grateful to our state members, Alistair Henskins and Matt Cross. Recently, we were mentioned in the New South Wales Parliament question time, which was very, very special for us. And the members of Parliament hosted the Ku-ring-gai Chamber there, and it was really a wonderful event that's specially for members. And I'd also like to thank Paul Fletcher, the former member for Bradfield. Paul was a very strong supporter of the Ku-ring-gai Chamber and ran an annual breakfast for our members. And in this annual breakfast were insights into national policy. So it was really a valuable time, and it was always very well attended. Tonight's forum is an important opportunity for the Bradfield community to hear directly from our candidates. And we're all members of the Bradfield community, so this is really important for our audience tonight to hear what our candidates here have to say. Candidates We really appreciate your time and effort to be here tonight. We know how extraordinarily busy you are, and you know, it's a very big gig to be going into a federal government election. So thank you for your time tonight. It's really appreciated. And I'll tell you a little thing that happened. The other day we started sending emails out to you, the attendees, asking if you had any questions that you'd like posed for tonight. There was an amazing response to that, and you're going to be hearing some of the questions asked, and you're going to be hearing some of the answers from our candidates. Lastly, I'd like to thank the Ku-ring-gai Chamber of Commerce Committee. They are an amazing group of professionals who really put in a lot of effort to run tonight. So thank you to the committee. Enjoy the evening. I'm sure it's going to be engaging and entertaining. And I'll pass over to Dale Crosby, our Master of Ceremonies.
Thanks very much, Adrienne. It's my responsibility to keep this evening moving along at a decent pace, but also to give the candidates an opportunity to talk about their policies and give you a chance to ask some questions. So we'll try and mix it up a little bit. I do have the support of Michael at the back, who's our official timekeeper. So Michael has actually been to New South Wales Parliament and he's seen how the speaker actually works. He'll be doing his best as well to keep us on track. So the way we're going to run tonight is firstly to ask the candidates a little bit about their policies, get some feedback from them, and then explore in a little further depth their interests and their, I guess, concerns and answers in relation to some of the key issues affecting our community. Just some ground rules, I guess. It's important that we respect the candidates, their opportunity to talk, so please no interruptions while they're talking. We will have opportunity to ask questions, and as I said, we'll try and keep to the time limits, and the idea is we finish by 8:30. So thought we'd start with candidate introductions. We've got 5 candidates. I'd firstly like to welcome Andy Yin. Welcome, Andy. Martin Cousins, who's representing the Greens. Louise McCallum, so welcome Louise. Giselle Kapterian from the Liberal Party, thank you Giselle. And Nicolette Buller from Independent. So it's great to get you all together. So we're going to start off maybe going from that side to this side. I'd like to ask the candidates 3 questions. Who are you? Why are you running for Bradfield? What do you stand for? What are your key policy positions? And how will you prioritise Bradfield and beyond? So you've got 5 minutes. Good luck. Thank you.
Can I ask a question before you start? It's a question to you.
Yes.
So you've respectfully invited these 5 people.
Yes.
Who they represent. Why haven't you invited One Nation and also Patriots of Trumpets and Patriots?
We invited the people that are registered as candidates.
And actually I have a family history in small business as well. So my father's side worked in retail his whole career, and my mother was in health. So I think I've got a broad exposure to the range of businesses, and including small businesses, which is, I think, the focus of the chamber here. I'm actually a member of a Chamber of Commerce in the Hunter Valley because I do still have some links up there. I should mention, so I'm actually standing in the seat of Berowra. I live here in Bradfield. I've lived here for 17 years. I actually stood here in Bradfield last time for the election. For the federal election. And I would describe myself as an active community member. I participate in several Ku-ring-gai Council environmental programs, bush care, endangered species protection. I'm also, I volunteer for a sporting organisation, and I also help run an energy industry association. So to segue on to why am I running? I keep an eye on our politicians, and particularly federal politicians, what they're doing and saying. And I think, as Andy also said, from time to time some things annoy me. And in this case, actually, the Coalition's proposal for nuclear power was one of those, given my knowledge of the energy industry and the structure of the energy market. So I wanted to stand up, put myself forward and contribute my knowledge and ideas on that, and give people an opportunity to vote for Greens, these policies and others. Also want to draw attention to some of our other politicians, and in particular Dr. Maureen Faruqi, who's standing in the Senate. It's been a very active politician. So my key policies and the impact on Bradfield, I'll run through my policies largely align with the Greens, and hopefully you've heard of some of them. Climate action and environment protection is top of the list, and obviously this is the origins of the Greens. We want to protect the places that we love, our community, character of our community here. We want to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. And the good news is that there are great opportunities for Australia in doing this and acting on climate change. We too want to address housing. We want to address the multi-decadal decline in home ownership. You know, at the moment, around a third of Australians are renting and a third have a mortgage. You know, can you imagine those people when they get to retirement age if they don't have secure housing? So we need to do something substantial in housing. Tweaks won't make the difference that we need. So we have a series of policies in housing. We have other policies in cost of living, including, hopefully you've heard, getting dental and mental health into Medicare, properly funding Medicare, so increasing the rebates, bringing them back up, you know, perhaps with CPI. And I'm pleased to say that we have led on some of these, and you've seen the major parties, Labor, following. We've also want to stop supermarket gouging, give greater controls there. Just memory, is that 5 minutes? Education and international relations. Also two of my priority areas, which maybe I'll touch on later. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I forgot to mention that Martin is standing in for Harjit Singh, who is the local Greens candidate for Bradfield, but really appreciate your support here tonight, Martin. I'd like to introduce Louise McCallum and give her an opportunity to talk about...
Can I have a speak there?
Thank you.
Can I speak here? Is that okay? Great. Haven't got enough hands to handle everything. Good evening, everyone. I consider myself to be an ordinary person. Until very recently, I'd never contemplated standing for election to represent my community. However, when you do decide to get up off the couch, I think it's really important to reflect on the values that you want to represent. And to me, the vision of a compassionate, inclusive, and just society where everyone feels heard and valued is my guiding light. The recognition that we're not all born into equal circumstances, that we need to look after one another, and that a rising tide lifts all boats. Whether that's individuals or businesses, the concept that innovation, hard work, and sacrifice should be encouraged, supported, and rewarded. To me, Labor perfectly represents those values. I've lived in Linfield for the last 15 years, and prior to that, I've lived in Melbourne and I've lived in Adelaide. I grew up in Castle Hill. And I tell you that because it means that I have a genuine basis for comparison when I say I think Bradfield is one of the best places in Australia to live. The greenery, the infrastructure, the community dynamic, it's just a magical area. And it makes me especially proud to stand for beautiful Bradfield. My professional background is in marketing and advertising. For the past 20 years, I've been running my own small business. a recruitment consultancy placing people into jobs in this sector. So that means that every day I listen to my candidates' stories, I take the time to understand them, and then I advocate for them and represent them, a lot like politics. Also, of course, it means I have a unique insight into the challenges, the stresses, and the joys of running a small business. I know the fear of taking that initial risk, the worry of balancing the books, the challenges in finding, maintaining, and retaining staff, the frustrations of dealing with red tape. But also, I know the thrill of creating something from scratch, making a contribution to society, and, of course, generating a profit. One of the things that excites me most about the Labor Party is their focus on the next generation. Of course, dealing with real-time issues, but very much laying a strong foundation for the next generation. Their policies on education, on energy transition and health are all impactful, they're smart, and they're well thought out. And as a small business owner, I've been particularly pleased to see the new ideas and fresh thinking that we've delivered. Just some really quick examples. The first National Small Business Strategy, reducing payment times for small businesses, developing skills and training through fee-free TAFE and funding new apprenticeships. A record 25,000 businesses have been created under the Albanese Labor government every month on average since we came to office. We recognise that small businesses are the engine room of the Australian economy, and that's why they're at the core of our plan to build Australia's future. So what would I deliver for Bradfield? Well, I would build on the strong foundation that Labor have begun delivering over the last 3 years. A level playing field where small businesses are not overshadowed by big businesses and are given equal opportunity. Where my mate George from Turramurra, who has his own building company, is covered by the unfair trading practice protections that Labor extended. I want to see an educated mobile workforce that are treated fairly and incentivised to be productive and work in harmonious, happy workplaces. So Fiona, my hairdresser, just across the street here at the Colour Room, feels that she can stay up to date with her training and make my hair look fabulous and stay working there, not because she's scared of non-compete clauses, but because they treat her well. Labor has built the foundation for a modern competitive economy that capitalises on our renewables-led approach. So Dallas Air Conditioning, run by my friend Rod from Roseville, can buy an EV fleet and bring down his fuel costs. We want a small business ecosystem that feels supported and looked after. Labor is the party that restored my hope in 2022 and that makes me believe there is a fairer and more prosperous future ahead for the next generation and for Bradfield.
Thank you, Louise. On to our fourth candidate. I'd like to welcome Giselle Kaptarian.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, everybody. I might... Is it all right if I stand here? Can everyone see me? Good evening, everybody. What a lovely turnout for democracy. This is exactly what we want to see on a Wednesday evening. And thank you to the Chamber. Thank you, Adrienne, Michael, Dale. This is fantastic. Thank you for putting in the effort to organise this. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening we are meeting just as our largest trading partner is being hit with 104% tariffs. It's just been announced by the United States. We are living in very uncertain economic times for Australia. We are living at a time where Australia's living standards have fallen the fastest of any OECD country. In the last 3 years, we've seen 29,000 small businesses go out of, shut their doors and close their shops. We are setting records in all the wrong ways. For the first time in Australia's history, the next generation of Australians will not be as well off as the ones that have gone before. We do have a cost of living crisis, but moreover, we have a cost of government crisis with excessive government spending that is driving up inflation, driving up the cost of doing business, driving up the cost of having a family, driving up the cost of getting your children educated, driving up the cost of healthcare. And this is the scenario we are faced with a new geopolitical pressure added by the changes we are seeing to tariffs and trade across the globe. Now, I'm a local girl. I grew up in Willoughby. I've spent time in Linfield, moved around the world as an international trade lawyer, came right back to Willoughby again, because this is the most wonderful part of Australia. It is a part of Australia that is full of entrepreneurs, of people who value education, people who value family, who understand that the value system of Australia is built on having a go, making sacrifices, taking risks to ensure that the next generation of Australians are better off than the ones that have gone before. It is the story not only of our migrant communities, of which I am a part, but also all the Australians who are so privileged to call Australia home. But this social contract that we have been a party to for so many years, this contract for which we have upheld our side of the bargain, is under threat. It's under threat because we have lost our direction as a government to fulfill the role that government needs to provide to the citizens of Australia. And those roles are to ensure our citizens are safe and secure, and to put in place the right economic infrastructure to ensure every single Australian can define their own destiny, to have their own chance of making a better life for themselves and their family. That's what the promise of Australia is all about. That's the social contract that we subscribe to as citizens. And so what are we doing about it? Well, I'm an international trade lawyer by background. I have spent the last 6 years in technology, dealing with generative AI, the productivity dividends of generative AI, and the wonder and worry of it, data, privacy. I have spent time as a staffer in Canberra, working for our foreign minister, our trade minister, and our industry, innovation and employment minister. I understand the connections between ensuring that we have the right supply of skills to ensure our jobs and our businesses can grow. I understand what tariffs can do to create a level playing field for our businesses or destroy entire industries. I know that the things that we need to fix today are structural. They are systemic. And we've seen the coalition put on the table some of the plans already, and there's more to come, some of the plans that will create the structural change that ensure our businesses can thrive once again, to ensure that families have their choices once again, to ensure we can have a safe and secure manufacturing industry in Australia that truly understands its role in global supply chains, that understands its space in the modern economy. And so I'm looking forward to your questions this evening, and together we can get Australia back on track.
Thanks very much, Giselle. And finally, final introduction from Nicolette Buller.
And next time, I'm not going to go after Giselle, if that's okay. It's very well said. Hello. Yes, and thank you so much also to Michael, to Dale, to Adrienne. Thank you. And to everybody for coming tonight to be part of Democracy in Action. It is fantastic. I've lived here almost all of my 50-something years, and it hasn't been a usual thing that people turn up to talk about politics, to listen to candidates. So this is quite something, and thank you everybody for turning up. I'm a mother of 2 kids. I have a professional background in finance and clean energy and driving change across these sectors in all sorts of places, in state government, federal government, think tanks, not-for-profits, small business and advice, management consulting in particular. And I too, I think like almost everybody, is a child of new arrivals to Australia, from the Netherlands, in fact. My stepdad, working in biomedical devices locally here, like pacemakers, ultrasound, bionic ears, dialysis and so forth. And then my biological father running a small business importing cut flowers from all over the Asian area. And you probably would buy some of those through Woolworths, for example, until, of course, he went to the wall during COVID, like so many small businesses did. So I'm running because I think we have a cost of living crisis, a housing crisis and a climate crisis because, unfortunately, in this precious democracy that we hold dear, the major parties can't quite get done what needs to happen in terms of structural reform and the inconvenient things like reforming taxation that just doesn't happen. It seems to me that the parties have one particular ideology or one approach, and it's not by any shortcoming of the amazing people that put themselves up for public service and be represented as MPs, but when you get into a party, you have to follow the party line and you are accountable to your party, your ideology, your principles, and to sometimes donors, special interests, or if a marginal seat's interests over someone else, not the national interests and not the views and values of the communities that you're elected to represent. So I'm standing as an independent because I believe the best chance to break the deadlock on some of these tough things that are really hurting people and small businesses now can be done from the crossbench in the 48th Parliament. The key policies, I'm hoping most of you have received a brochure which covers some of those. I want it to be really clear. It's hard as an independent to make yourself known. I think people understand the values and the priorities of a lot of the parties, but an independent, it's like a bag of licorice, all sorts. This is me. I am socially and environmentally progressive, but I'm economically dry. And the priorities are in there, particularly around early childhood education and care, around making it easier for small business to not just survive, but to thrive, in simplifying taxes, cutting red tape, and basically just helping put us onto a more sustainable footing in terms of security and understanding about what government policies are. I mean, an instant tax write-off is fine, but it's so disruptive if you don't know it's going to be in the next budget. Why not make that a permanent feature of small business taxation in this country? So I just wanted to also, how many minutes have I got left? 1 minute. My brother and I ran a small business just above Meffield's Indian restaurant in Gordon for a number of years, a management consulting business. And we were faced with that classic thing of having 14 employees and wondering if we were going to, how we were going to manage to get the capital to scale to become suddenly accountable as a 15 or 16 person business with the same kind of regulatory and reporting burdens that a company with 200 employees have. That is not working for small business. So I've been there on that one. I've also been working for the Smart Energy Council, who has over 1,000 small businesses as their members in the clean energy value chain. And also when I was working in management consulting for one of the big, well, a lot of different clients, but in particular, one of the duopoly supermarkets, my job was to listen to the fresh food suppliers in the value chain for one of these two supermarkets and do a deep dive over 12 months of the small businesses that feed into those supermarkets. So, yeah, okay, that's me sitting down. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Nicolette. Okay, we're going to speed things up a little bit now. So we've got 3 areas of primary focus. You will have the opportunity to ask questions, and that'll come shortly. The areas of focus that we've chosen for this event are focused on small business, which obviously is a particular passion for the Business Chamber. We're talking about environment and also local infrastructure and community services. So in this session, each candidate has 3 minutes to talk about, to respond to the issue and talk about what I guess is important to them in running. And once we've finished each section, then we will have opportunity for questions. So just bear with us a little longer and we'll get into that. So let's start with small business support again. Angie, if I can start with you. So the question is, how will you support local small businesses and foster a thriving business community in Bradfield?
Cool, thanks so much. So as I previously mentioned, cost of living crisis is at its peak at the moment, and small businesses are the backbone to this economy. They employ more than 50% of the Australian workforce. They mark up a large population in Australia. They contribute significantly to our economy, and they are struggling. So what we've got to do, and I mentioned it before, there's a few things that we can do as a government. So one, we can actually lower the taxes, especially for small businesses, the small business company tax. We've got to bring it down. I'm trying to aim to advocate for a 20%, bring it down to 20%. That's very important. Giving them the easement, ensuring that they've got more cash flow to expand. Secondly, we've got to ease the regulations, make sure that we cut red tape and making sure that lives are easier for them. They've got to tick a lot of check boxes. They've got to talk to government to get this done, and that whole process can be very long. And all they want to do is really just, expand their business so that they can survive in the industry. So we've got to really support. Governments should not be in the way, to step in the way of businesses. They should be there as their friend and ensure, what are the issues that concerning you? How can I do to help you? That's what government should be doing. And thirdly, talked about potential financial support for them. It can be in the form of grants. If a business wants to strive and to expand and to invest, and by doing so in critical areas, especially critical services, essential services, and they can give back to the community and put more people in jobs, we should support them, give them the grants and matching grants if needed for them to survive. So that's one thing for small business. And on the environment is clearly very important. The environment is very, very important. But the environment should be about science and economics, making it feasible, practical, ensuring that it's affordable as well. So, we've seen a great record of, delivering more solar panels on residential homes and for families, saving on energy costs. And the next step moving forward is ensuring we can, the installation of solar batteries, right, for the household. Solar batteries can be very, very costly and expensive. So, governments can be putting into, subsidies there, grants there to help the families make it more affordable for the solar battery installation. As we've seen, how the subsidies worked for the solar panels going out on the household. So that can be one potential thing to look at. And secondly, moving to a generation where we've got e-waste. So e-waste recycling, waste management is also very important, ensuring that the government looks at investing into these sectors so that we can do it more affordably and more safely. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Andy. So Martin, how will you support local small businesses and foster a thriving business community?
Okay, hello again. So I actually, I've got two main themes. One is a bit of a look at the businesses that are here in Bradfield and Ku-ring-gai now, and the second is what sort of jobs we can expect to come in future that you might get out of Green's policies, and there's some intersection there with some of those. I love going down to the local shops, supporting the local shops in Bradfield, and in my case in Linfield, the cafes, restaurants, dry cleaners, the supermarkets, the greengrocers, all of these businesses. But obviously there's some challenges for the traditional bricks and mortar retail and the stores that we used to have, and I looked at the Chamber membership as well, and obviously there's a lot of the membership that are involved in the service sector in different forms, whether it's finance or health or things like that. And so, those industries have changed, and I think there's a number of causes for that. The internet is one of them, but there's a question, I suppose, about what can we do to address them and revitalise some of our shopping centres in the electorate that do look a bit tired. And I'll touch on here that I expect planning might come up during the night, and TODs and all of that sort of thing, and what the future of our our local areas. And the Greens and myself personally have supported options where there is greater densification around our transport hubs. And I think that will help with renewal of some of these businesses, bring extra people in, and help to revitalise those communities. Another intersection, I suppose, with Greens policies. We're in favour of work from home, the benefits of that. We think that leads to, greater, people spending money in the local community, the communities in which they live. I think I mentioned in my introduction, or maybe I didn't actually, electrification is part of the transition that we need to make. I think that would be great in terms of making our shopping centres more attractive and more welcoming, getting the noisy, polluting vehicles off our highways and making the whole area more pleasant. Very quickly to other job opportunities that Greens policies I think will bring. I mentioned electrification, so we need to electrify our homes. There's still opportunity for more solar batteries. These are the sort of the jobs of the future. I guess I should finish. Yeah.
Thank you, Martin. Louise, thank you. So how will you support local small business and foster a thriving community?
So as I mentioned previously, I have been running a small business and I'm still in this small business today. So this is really important to me. And it's been very reassuring to see that we, the Labor Party, have prioritised the small business community and have delivered and are going to keep on delivering practical, real policies that make a difference at grassroots level, including for every business in Bradfield. So I thought I'd give you just a snapshot of the policies that we're delivering. We've been the first government to develop and deliver the National Small Business Strategy to simplify processes and cut red tape. We're providing $25.3 million over 4 years to improve payment times for small businesses. To address the skills shortages impacting local businesses, we're expanding access to free TAFE programs and we're increasing university placements. If you've got a local building business, we're providing up to $10,000 in financial incentives for eligible apprentices. We're supporting the hospitality sector and alcohol producers by pausing indexation on draft beer excise, benefiting local businesses like the Ku-ring-gai. We've maintained the $20,000 depreciation asset write-off and have just extended this again. To help with energy costs, we've delivered multiple energy rebates and we've just allocated an additional $150 in our latest budget. We're also giving a 30% subsidy towards the cost of solar batteries, which is going to have a dramatic impact on household and business energy bills. Now, one of the things that I'm most proud of that you may not have even heard of is our initiative in supporting the mental health of small businesses. I know what it's like to lie there at night worrying about the business. From January of this year, we've introduced a program called New Access, which provides 6 free one-on-one coaching sessions with professionals who understand the unique pressures of running a business. Labor understands that we all want a productive, modern economy that fosters new thinking, rewards innovation and operates efficiently. If I'm elected as your representative in Canberra, I'll be there drawing on my own experience in small business to help advocate for our small business community.
Thank you, Louise, and within the time frame. So, Giselle, again, how will you support local small business and foster a thriving business community?
Fantastic. Thank you, Dale. So the Coalition has already made a number of announcements that go directly to small business, and I'll mention those and then I'll speak to some of the more structural changes that have also been announced. So in relation to small business, we've already announced that we would commit to ensuring that we raise the instant asset write-off to $30,000 and make it permanent. So that's clear. The second thing that we've already announced that we will do is ensure that we reduce the fringe benefit tax up to $20,000 for any small business that wants to take its customers or employees out for a meal, to bring together those communities and to support one of the greatest parts of our small business economy that are really feeling it under the current cost of living pressures, which is hospitality. So it's a win-win situation in that respect. But let's go to some of the structural changes as well that we've announced. So one of the biggest challenges that our small business across the country is facing is, of course, energy costs. There's one of the cafes across the road, not far from here, told me that their energy bill used to be per quarter around $2,900. It has recently gone up to $12,000 per quarter. This is exactly the type of environment that our small businesses are fighting against. Add on top of that, the cost of compliance. I know another small business up in the northern part of the electorate, a small veterinary business, well, not that small, but the cost of ensuring that they adhere to the new industrial relations changes, which are more complex for a small business person to work out. You need a true expert to be able to do it. They have to pay experts to try and understand the industrial relations rules so that they can appropriately take on more staff. These are the types of compliance costs that are stopping people from hiring and not supporting our small businesses to grow appropriately. Then add on to that the fuel excise tax rebate that the Coalition has recently announced. Now, this is not just going to help you at the Bowser. This will be structural throughout the supply chain, as will our gas reservation policy. It means that your entire supply chain will be affected by a reduction in the cost. And on the fuel excise tax, it's been put at 12 months to have a look at, it's a point of review to ensure that we are not adding any inflationary pressure. It's a point to ensure that the intention of the policy is reaching its desired outcome. In these uncertain times where there's a lot of chaos in the broader geopolitical economic circumstances, you want agile policy that responds to the moment without adding inflationary pressure. I know it sounds great to get a handout, but what we actually need is structural change to ensure that that we're not creating adverse effects as a result of policy.
Thanks, Giselle. Just a reminder that after Nicolette has given her presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask some questions about the presentations that have just been made. So, Nicolette, how will you support local small businesses?
I think we've already heard, and if you're in small business, you know that the whole one-size-fits-all doesn't work for small business. That tax is complex and compliance is also costly, and it's gotten worse, frankly, in the last few years. There is penalties for companies that want, small businesses that want to grow, and frankly, despite the great work of like the Chamber of Commerce, even COSBOA, only 7% of people in small business feel that their voice is heard in the creation of legislation that's passed in Canberra. So we've got to do better to get your voices heard. My proposals, again, are in here. They are around creating a fairer small business definition, cutting red tape, and simplifying taxes. Specifically, my printer didn't work tonight, sorry. I do support, as I've already mentioned, increasing the definition of small business from 15 to 25 people. I also would like to introduce scaled compliance obligations such that it doesn't just go from 25 to 200. Let's have tranches so they're more meaningful for how big your back end is to do the reporting. Legislate an amnesty so that for 18 months, everyone can just relax a little bit and get ready for any changes that there are. And I would like to also work particularly with small business on cybercrime such as scams, which is what I'm hearing is happening more and more to small businesses here working in Bradfield. I think a small business impact statement should be done like we do a human rights impact statement for every legislation that goes through Parliament. Let's do one for small business as well. That will invite small businesses' voices around the table as well. And we need to simplify taxes. We need a tax, it's 2010 was when the Henry Tax Review was done. We've implemented 3.5 recommendations. We have a tax system that works against small business. We need a tax system that works for us. It has to be simpler, fairer, and it has to help us be more productive. I also want to harmonise payroll taxes across the states, or ideally, let's not have payroll tax. Why would you tax something good like employing people? And let's, as I mentioned, make that instant asset write-off permanent and give small businesses certainty that they are craving and that they deserve. Furthermore, I would say perhaps rather than the $20,000 fringe benefit tax break for food and beverage, I'd like to back in Sophie Scompson-McKellar, who's called for proposing a $20,000 tax-free threshold for company income tax, which will lower taxes for small business. And I also want to back in grants in energy-efficient appliances and businesses. I do think we need to reverse some of the work that the ALP's done, which I'm hearing is hurting small business. Things are more complex now. The definition of casual labour is also something that needs to be reviewed. Why do I not make it to the end? And I think we may need to reintroduce tougher at the Australian Building Construction Commission. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay. All right, thank you for that introduction, and that's given us a good platform on which to start getting some feedback from the candidates on questions that you've got. I'd like at this point in time just to focus on the small business issues that were raised, so we will have an opportunity to talk about other issues. If you do have a question, could you please stand up? And if you'd like the mic, you're most welcome to have it. Yes. Would you like the mic?
Yeah, please.
And you can ask a question of the candidates in general or of one candidate.
Yeah, it's general. I'm also a small business professional, and it's very interesting to hear how much they're going to give away. The only people I hear about giving back is the browser and less tax simpler, and I'm excited about that. The rest of it, they're going to give grants, more money, and I think, damn it, I work hard. That's my money that you are giving away. When am I going to give something back? So I want to know from the candidates, when are they going to recognize the hard-earned money of the average taxpayer and give us, instead of spending our money, giving it to everybody, how about giving back to the small business who earned it in the first place? That's one thing. The second thing, with the Greens and all that policy, you know, I switch on my lights. I got solar panel. I do everything that's right. I go around the house switching off the lights because my electricity bill has gone up so much that as a professional, I cannot afford my electricity bill. Yes, clean energy. How about giving me some light so I can actually see my work at night? Thank you.
What about all these pensioners?
Okay, yes, let's just talk about the small business issues at the moment, and we'll come back to that definitely. Would anybody like to respond to the question and the comments?
Thanks so much. No, thank you for your question. And I, as I just mentioned previously, small businesses like you are really finding it hard, and you guys are putting in the efforts, the hard commitment into ensuring that you survive and yes, and contributing back to the economy. And it is your money. It is your money. And we do recognize that. I recognize it because I've been in your shoes. I've been in the hospitality business. You know, we've been hit by COVID hard. And to survive, first thing is you've got to survive to ensure that you can actually stay in the game and to ensure that you actually have your workers in the jobs. And, you know, Australian taxes are high. We have high taxes. And one thing that I mentioned earlier is we're going to bring those taxes down to make your cash flow more easier. Secondly, businesses need to strive, right? You need to grow, you need to strive, you need to do well so that you can contribute back to the economy and you can put people in jobs. So taking your money away is that the money spent needs to go through go to we've got to be accountable. Government needs to be accountable where the money is spent, right? If we're spending the money in areas that's not going to transition Australia for the betterment of our country, not for the betterment of our people and society driving forward, that's wrong. So we've got to cut red tape, cut wasteful spending. Governments need to be more accountable as to where the money's going into. We've got to be giving it back to support small businesses, as I mentioned, grants, matching grants. If you need to expand, if you need to grow, if there's anything that governments can do to support you so that you stay strong in the field, so that you can contribute more greatly to the society, that's what government should be doing.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, yes. Yep. I know we understand, yeah. We'll have to move forward. Would anybody else like to respond?
As a first principle, that is exactly the position that government should take with regard to all taxpayer funds. That is, government doesn't earn money itself, it's your money. And so every dollar spent should come from that perspective. And one of the biggest challenges right now is we're reading an AI group report at the end of last year of the 470,000 jobs created in the 12 months last year. 85% of them were directly or indirectly government funded. That is the problem that we're facing as a country right now. Your principle exactly right. It's taxpayers' funds. Our productivity is through the floor. It's dropping 8% now. Your purchasing power as a household is dropping. What we need to do is reverse the spend, rein in wasteful spending, ensure that we have structural change that allows small business to do what it does best, which is create profits, create jobs, and contribute to our communities. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to I completely agree with Giselle, but it is probably I couldn't let it go past to say that we have a structural debt problem, and one of the policies that the LNP is proposing, I don't think works very well in terms of spending your money well, which is they want to use debt, basically the 25% diesel and fuel rebate is a sugar hit, which could be invested, that's lots of billions of dollars that could be invested to permanently bring down the costs of transport and business. And wherever possible, I think it is prudent that we choose structural changes that permanently reduce costs and put money back in our pockets so everyone in the community can go into the villages and spend money in the small businesses that make up where we live, not just giving money possibly to multinational energy companies who do not pay their fair share of tax.
I'll just respond to that because I think it's a really important point that needs to be addressed. That is the reason why we haven't gone down the path of subsidisation, but rather to reduce a tax that was already a tax burden that you were already wearing. So it is a structural change, and it's a structural change that is felt throughout our supply chains. That is the point of it, and it's going to exist for 12 months. And the point of it is because we know Australians are hurting today. They're not hurting in 18 months' time or 2 years or so forth. They're hurting today. And so it's what we can do right now to make a significant difference without the inflationary effects of subsidisation.
Great. Look, thank you for your question. I just wanted to hone in on one particular part of that, which was energy prices, because we all feel the impact of that. We know that they've risen. I wanted to talk about why this is happening, first of all, and then explain what we're doing about it. So wholesale electrical prices change throughout the day. It's based on demand, and the price is set by the most expensive generator needed at that time, and often that's gas. So even though gas only makes up 17% of our electricity generation, its high cost is what keeps driving up the prices for all electricity. And global gas prices have spiked due to the war in Ukraine, and we're still dealing... And we're also still... excuse me.
But please let the candidate talk.
Excuse me, thank you. And post-pandemic demand spikes are still happening as well. We're in this transition period. We're moving to a renewables-led strategy, which means that we're building 10,000 kilometres of infrastructure to connect the cheaper renewable energy to the grid. So this is an investment that we have to make, and it is temporarily adding to bills. But what we're doing right now is giving you rebates directly into your pocket, and we've also introduced our 30% rebate on solar batteries as well. We're also holding energy companies accountable so we can ensure that savings are passed on when wholesale prices are dropped. In the future, what this means is that our energy grid costs will dramatically drop across the board because we'll be moving to free renewables, free sunshine, free wind power, just backed up with gas. So we will see in the future a much cheaper energy price grid for everyone, including small businesses.
Martin, I assume you'd like to finish up?
Okay. Yeah, I won't. Yeah, I mean, I can assure you that the technology is there and the solutions are there. But what I wanted to say, okay. Okay.
Please let Martin talk.
All right. So, look, what I wanted to say, look, I appreciate your question. I agree that government should consider all its spending wisely. I also pay tax. I pay personal tax. I pay company tax. I recognise that our society needs this. I realise it's a cost of living crisis. I realise people need assistance. So I think that's just part of being in a society where we support those that need it.
Okay. Thanks, Martin. I think we'll move on to our next topic because we're time is moving on. We're going to talk about local infrastructure and community service, which is particularly important to Bradfield. And I know we're talking about a federal election here, but we're keen to know what the candidates feel in relation to issues concerning essential services and infrastructure in Bradfield. So again, maybe Angie, if we can start with you. And the question is, what will you do to improve essential services and infrastructure, including transport, education and healthcare in Bradfield?
Look, Bradfield has been one of the greatest places to work, to live and to raise a family, and many people come over into Bradfield to start a life here and a new journey here. And you know, it's absolutely fascinating to be here. So one thing that I've realised talking to the local constituents is there's a few areas in Bradfield that's really getting populated, and there's high density areas and highly populated areas, and you know, we've seen in Willoughby, in Chatswood, you know, where there's lots of apartments there, and I think, you know, one potential thing I will be advocating for is an upgrade to the transport hub across Bradfield, and to, you know, the bus interchanges especially. We can work alongside different levels of government, including talking to the Transport Department. More federal funding going into the infrastructure there, potentially looking at pushing for an 100% EV buses to reduce noise pollution and air pollution. That can be a thing, especially for highly density areas. One other thing that is my passion, and I've pushed for this on the campaign trail, is the importance of education. Education is so important because investing in education is investing in our country's future. You may have seen my campaign team full of kids, and you know, going around the streets into different areas with the robotic AI dog. It's a sign that we are in a generation of science and innovation and technology, and AI has played a role in the world transformation. And I've been consulting to industry experts, especially those in education, both private, public, one person I've been consulting with is Vicky Waters, the former principal here at Pymble Ladies College, a school in Bradfield, for 12 years. She's been in the industry for 30 years. And I say, well, how can we make education better? And she said, well, you know, AI is a thing these days, and every student deserves a fair go. Every student in the classroom deserves to be more, you know, to absorb information and learn subjects, to be, you know, to achieve aspirations in the future. So we can really look at, you know, exploring and investigating and researching on how AI in this generation, on AI tech, and how that can benefit the classroom and teachers and students. So, you know, we talked to a few industry experts. Dr. John Hawkins, had a chat with him. He was a data scientist, and he said, well, AI can really custom tailor to the needs of every single student in the classroom. Some students are better learners, some fall behind. You know, using things like facial recognition to assess the mood that students are in on the day and how we can custom tailor so that they don't fall behind and have a fair go. That's very great. So I've been advocating for you know, better education system and potential reforms in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Martin, so what will you do to improve essential services and infrastructure, including transport, education and healthcare?
Okay, yes, so I'll just address them fairly quickly, I hope. So I mentioned a couple of things with transport last time, and that you know, the benefits of electrification, reducing pollution, etc. Obviously transport, the other part of transport is congestion that we find on our roads. So the number of things the Greens have done in different areas to reduce that. We've got 50-cent public transport fares in Brisbane that have been very successful, increasing uptake there, getting people off roads. We are fans, I guess, or we have a policy of introducing the high-speed rail. I think an ideal place for this really would be between Central Coast or Newcastle and Sydney. It's a highly populated corridor. It'd get a lot of traffic off the road, people coming down from the Central Coast into Sydney. We'd also advocate for more cycleways and active transports and the and the health benefits that come from that. In education, I'll just mention one thing. One of our major policies and the things we've focused on there is to make higher education free, and I'd say free again, because I'm sure some people here experienced free higher education. Thank you. And the thinking there is really, we want young people to be able to get a good education, get a good start in their career, get into a good job. And once they've done that, then they can start paying back the costs of that education through a progressive taxation system. So we fully believe in all of those things, that progressive taxation, rather than students coming out of university now with $50,000, $100,000 HECS debt that limits you know, what they can do borrowing for a house or anything like that. The third thing, healthcare. Again, some of our key policies were getting dental and mental health into Medicare, and making, or see the doctor for free, we called it, which is basically increasing the Medicare rebate. And again, I've mentioned I'm very pleased that the major parties have followed some of those suggestions. I would argue that the Medicare rebate is really, and the increases in that is really just a catch-up for you know, the constraints on those rebates that were implemented around 10 years ago. So maybe I'll leave it there and get a bit of time back.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. Louise.
So I think this is a really great question, because these are the issues that make a difference to our everyday. So let me share with you how federal leadership is making a real difference here in Bradfield. In healthcare, I am so proud of our work to strengthen Medicare, with the biggest investment of any government to date. We've opened 87 urgent care clinics, with another 50 on the way, including one right here in Chatswood. We're also rolling out 61 Medicare mental health centres including a new facility just down the road in Ryde. We've added 15,000 doctors to the system. We've slashed costs for hundreds of medicines, including in IVF and menopause. And we're going to be making 9 out of 10 GP visits bulk billed. In terms of transport, now this is primarily a state and a local issue, so I'm committed to working with government at all levels. As an example, we met this morning with Willoughby Council, and part of our discussion was around traffic flows in the area. So it was really valuable to get their insights and hear their funding priorities. I'd also love to follow the lead of Jerome Laxall, the Labor MP in next door Bennelong, who just this week met with New South Wales Transport Minister John Graham to discuss a better bus system throughout the local area. So it's all about advocacy and collaboration. In terms of education, so as a parent with 2 kids at university, I know that the 20% HEX discount will ease cost of living pressures for families across Ku-ring-gai. At the other end, we're making childcare more affordable, and we're making fee-free TAFE permanent, training the tradies and skilled workers that our communities and our local businesses need. We're also increasing funding to state primary schools. Federal funding shapes local outcomes. Whether it's health clinics, better transport links, or education opportunities, if I'm elected as your representative in Canberra, I'll work hard to ensure that Bradfield gets its fair share.
Thank you, Louise. Giselle, just to remind ourselves, what will you do to improve essential services and infrastructure, including transport, education and healthcare?
Thank you. I think it's an important reminder again of what is the role of a federal representative on these issues. And it's just been touched on before, but I think it's pretty clear, of course, the primary jurisdiction is with our state members and in cooperation with council, but there are a number of things that federal government can do. And one of the things that I would point to in terms of what it means to actually have good representation here is what we were able to achieve with 2 levels of Liberal government to build our metro system that is now supporting this area. And North connects and West connects, and now the Western Sydney Airport, which will then take pressure off Sydney Airport, and viewing the entire map of Sydney for what it is and the way in which we commute and engage within as people of Bradfield, but as people of Sydney. And this is why it is so useful to have those levels of government cooperating with each other, with excellent council representation as well, to get those things happening. Because infrastructure is a role where federal government can play a significant role. It is also about funding of our school, of our hospitals and our systems as well. There is funding that we can provide. But what underlies all of this is good economic management. Right now, across Bradfield, we've had 2 schools at state level whose bill has been cancelled by the state Labor government, Chatswood and St Leonard's, at a time where our schools up in this area are overflowing, particularly our public school system. And we heard recently about the redistribution of the boundaries in this area for people to no longer have the choice to send their children to Kalara High, an excellent public school. I am the product of the public school education myself. This is so important for families to have choice again about the type of education that they want to give their families. This is what happens when you don't have good economic management. Imagine that at the same scale at the federal level. These are the situations that this is the situation we're facing as Australians, as members of Bradfield. If we want good infrastructure, good schools, good healthcare, good education, we need strong economic managers. That's why we've committed $9 billion to Medicare as well. We have reinstated from the reduction of down to 10 Medicare supported mental health sessions back up to 20, because it's so important for mental health to be a priority. We are ensuring, under this government, 270 medical practices have gone under, removing access to timely, reliable healthcare That is not the Australia that we should be living in. And so what we need to be doing is getting that economic management back under control so we can keep delivering these frontline services, these important support systems and infrastructure, which is the primary role of government.
Thank you, Giselle. Please prepare your questions. As soon as Nicolette's finished, we'll ask questions about this topic.
Oh, there's so many levels of government in this country, and if you live in a strata, there's not just 3, but there's a 4th level of government. And if you're renting also from a property owner, you probably have a 4th level of government. So what's going to be really important, and I think Giselle touched on it a little bit, but I'd probably cast it wider. If I have the privilege of representing you here in Bradfield, I think it is really important that we have some kind of regular council that convenes between local council, state members and federal representatives in areas that make sense in terms of transport and feeder communities, in terms of, for example, places where people work. That's what I'd like to do. I'd also like to have a Bradfield Issues group, specifically inviting local and small business to feed into that process so that your voice can be heard, irrespective of whether we have Liberal, Labor, Green, or whatever. This is what I can offer as an independent. So in terms of our small business, we've already heard tonight that, people working in small business are overrepresented in the number of people not only suffering from but seeking mental health services. And in this electorate, I've had a briefing. We are unfortunately we've got 2 great facilities, but we do not have enough, and the wait lines are very long. Quite good for young people, but particularly men aged 50 and over. They don't often ask for help, but they do not have mental health services that they need, and that is something that I would absolutely support in terms of also adding from 10 to say 20 visits was what the Liberal National Party is also suggesting. Transport, we do have now, and we got a clap out of the metro. How proud are we of our public transport? The roads, I think, potholes is what I hear every time door knocking. We've got a lot of work to do and a big call out. I know it's not an easy job to be a local councillor. Thank you for your service, but I'm telling you now, people want action on the potholes. But we have a bus issue. We've privatised the buses, and people who live in places like St Ives and Castle Cove and Northbridge do not have services after 7 p.m. sometimes. This is an issue. And unfortunately, as much as I like electric vehicles, we don't even have enough diesel buses to service our communities right now. So we've got to work on that fast. Now, apart from the bones of productive business, which is affordable, fast and reliable broadband, affordable and reliable energy, we also need to move, oh really? That's my one thing, which is, thank you, which is I think what we've kind of missed in here, which is early childhood education and care. I have one small business owner who introduced me to one of her workers who works 2 days a week and takes home $30 after putting her kids in early childhood. And I said, what do you do that for? She says, so I can keep my foot in the door with the business and have a job. $30 after working for 2 days. We've got to allow families to choose if those parents both want to work. And the only way we can do that is giving our children the best start to life by leaning into much more affordable and available early childhood education and care.
Thank you, Nicolette. Okay, questions. So again, if you have a question, please stand up, and you should get a mic. So yes, and then the gentleman behind.
Evening. I just don't know where to start. I hear all these platitudes. I hear about the funding, but there's lack of common sense. Number one is you want to put $25 million in mental health funding. We have got complete wards in hospitals that are closed because there's no one to actually maintain and service them. Much cheaper than setting up something from start. use the existing infrastructure before we start spending money. Right? Number one. Number two is the Labour just wants to keep on bankrolling and spending money without actually getting a return and see where the savings going. And one of the biggest issues you look is the building industry. The trade unions have destroyed the productivity that you can't even build and do renovation in your house. It's doubled in 5 years. And until you sort out this structural issues and basically have accountability, I mean, us as small owners can't even take a decent salary out, but yet public services get the increases above inflation every year. You cannot do that. It doesn't work in reality. You've got to get productivity. Thank you. Yeah, the question I wanted to say is, as a Labour, primarily at the Labour, how are we actually going to change this and have an honest debate of what we actually need to do and make our money go further than just going into debt more and more, because your interest rates are going higher. Thank you.
It's a big question, yeah. So, sorry, just so I understand your question properly, you're asking for what are we investing back in for small business? Is that your question?
You're talking about mental health.
Right, yes.
We've got infrastructure, we've got buildings, we've got no staff to maintain it. There are 406 positions for psychiatrists in the public service. They're not even 200 in the public service. Rather use that money to get these awards open up and help. The question is, rather than sort of this money allocation, I've got 25 million there, it's like each day, it's like the shopping with Anthony Albanese. I would like a better communication to utilise our resources better. And how would you organise that? That's really what it is.
Right, so you're talking about, sorry, I am just struggling to understand the question here. Is the question the messaging around what services are available? Is that what you're sort of meaning?
How are you going to change the actual machine that we get better outcomes?
Okay.
We've got so much in current resources that are not being utilised correctly.
The hospitals where you've got wards that are shut down, but you don't have the doctors or the medical team. It is a state issue, but it's also federal. So what he's trying to say is you need to implement maybe the health department to go in there and just restructure it. You've got the building already, so don't spend money on that.
Right. Okay, well, firstly, in terms of psychiatrists that you've I'm trying to break down the specific elements of this question. In terms of psychiatrists, that is a state issue. I can tell you that overall, in terms of the medical industry, we've added 15,000 doctors in Australia. We've opened 61 mental health clinics. We've got another one opening down the road in Ryde. So we are investing heavily in improving the healthcare in Australia. If that message isn't getting out, perhaps that comes down to communicating more broadly, although I would say that, you know, it is something that Labor politicians are very proud of and we do talk about quite a lot. So we are certainly investing very, very heavily in the healthcare sector. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Are we ready for a question?
Yes.
Alrighty. Look, first of all, thank you all for engaging with us here tonight. It's great to see democracy in action. My question for you all today, and I don't want slogans, I just want straight-shooted yes or no question or answers, or any answer that you believe is warranted. If you could change one thing, if you had a magic wand, what would it be?
Yeah. I would like it possible that everybody who wanted to could find and could have affordable and secure housing.
You stole my answer. I was going to say the same thing. I have 3 children living at home. I really don't want them there forever. much as I love them. So, look, I think we have made really significant progress. We've only had 3 years. We've gone from a government that for a long time didn't even have a Minister of Housing, and now we have a number of initiatives. We've got the Housing Accord, which is going to deliver 1.2 million houses by 2030. We've got one of my favourite policies, which is the Housing Australia Future Fund, which is building 30,000 affordable and social housing new developments. So I think. So we're also training a large amount.
Sorry,
excuse me, I am talking. We are also training a lot of people in the construction industry. We're offering fee-free TAFE for people learning their skills in this area. So I'm with Nicolette. I really want to see housing improve, but I think we've made a really good start. We need another 3 years to keep going and building and delivering on that.
Would anybody else like to make a comment? Martin?
Yeah, quickly. Look, I think actually, to be fair to the other candidates, these issues are all important. For the Greens, though. Yeah, so for the Greens, actually, I'll go back to climate change, recognising it is a threat, and recognising the opportunity that it presents to Australia, and tackling that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Menzies always said that your home is the most important thing. Basically, that is the answer. But I reject the idea that we have to choose one, because this is Australia, and we shouldn't have to just be able to fix one thing. The interconnectedness of the challenges that our society is facing today, I think, is not lost on everybody in this room. And we need people in Canberra who knows how to address all of those issues at once, while we do need to go through a triage system, but we do need to address the complexity of those challenges, because otherwise it's just an aspiration and not a deliverable.
No, afterwards. Afterwards. Can we just give the other candidates a chance to respond?
Well, great answers. I think for me personally, it's about a united Australia, not about a divided Australia. I think there's in Australia, everyone's got different views, but I think it needs to be sensible, it needs to be reliable, it needs to be affordable. Everyone in this country should deserve a fair go. Everyone in this country should, be treated equally and, have the same opportunity to strive. And government should be there to support everyone and ensuring that they can achieve their aspirations.
Okay. All good. Okay, one more question.
Yes, please. Okay, my name is Margaret. I've got a real serious issue that I need for the 5 of you to address. Are you all familiar with the title deed of your properties? Have you been made aware of the changes that all these people are unaware of? That once you've paid off your $10 million house, $5 million house, $600,000 house, that you no longer are the owner, you are a tenant once you've paid off all that mortgage and all that interest. Now, could you please answer that question? Are you aware of that? And if you're not, you need to go up to these people and make them accountable. What has happened to your title deed that your grandparents and your parents owned that you are no longer entitled to own? That you are now renting?
Sure.
Okay, would anybody like to respond?
I'll just say thank you, Margaret. It's great to hear. I wasn't aware of this issue. Well, you better be aware. And thank you.
Yes, Mark, can we give them a chance to respond, please? Yes, can I give her a chance to respond?
Sure. I just say.
No, I'm sorry. Can I give the candidates a chance to respond? Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just say, though, mostly probably because it's a state issue, because well, let's have.
I'm sorry. We need to give the candidates a chance to
respond. A little bit more
respond.
detail afterwards, so that we can appropriately address it. Thank you. if anybody's more aware of the issue. Yeah.
I've not heard of the issue. I don't believe it's an issue.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so I think we'll move on. I think we need to move on. We'll come back to the issue, please. Please, we need to move on. Okay, so the last topic that we're going to talk about is the environment. So there will be an opportunity for general questions at the end of this as well. I know there has been some discussion about the environment as well, but I'd like again to ask each speaker, maybe in 2 minutes if you can, 2 to 3 minutes, what are the critical environmental issues facing Bradfield and what specific commitments will you make to address them? Andy.
Thank you. I think I did kind of touch base on this question in the first question. I think it was, forward thinking and just like my slogan, not left, not right, just forward. But anyway, I'll come back to it again. Look, the environment is very important, and my belief is, it's going to be based on science, and it has to be based on the economics and the practicality of it all. So what that means is we've now experienced a cost of living crisis. So whilst we address the environmental issues, and we have to, and I don't think this is only an Australian issue, this is a global issue, and everyone has to work together on this, on achieving the long-term outcome and goal. But we have to do it in a way that's sensible. As I said in my energy policy, on my campaign brochure, it needs to be a sensible energy policy, reliable, sustainable, and affordable. But it's great to see that there's a mixed use of energy here in our country. We've got, what Australia is renowned for, and we've explored into things like solar. And governments have been promoting, the reduction in emissions and through, giving out subsidies on the use of solar for household. I think, moving now to the next step, which is stage 2, is, well, we've got to restore additional energy so that, if there's not a sun or, in days where you just don't get enough of that sustainability, you've got to use stored energy, and that requires batteries. And for batteries, it can be very costly. My view on that is, to support the everyday household, the families, the individuals, if they want to get a battery, government should be there to give them a few subsidies. But with the growing of mixed energy, you see, with EV cars, electric cars, and more solar batteries, you've got to manage the waste properly and safely. It's always important to keep it safely and affordably. If it's not affordable, it can't be safe. Getting governments to do research and to invest in the environmental sector, especially with the management of e-waste, electronic waste, is very important. So we need to address that. But at the end of the day, it needs to be affordable. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. So Martin, what are the critical environmental issues facing Bradfield, and what specific commitments will you make?
Okay, so again, I'd like to focus on 2 things. First is tree canopy and our local environment. I recognise this is largely, when it comes to development, it's largely a local and state issue in terms of the permitting of development. I mentioned before that I personally supported, I think it's scenario 3B in the TODs, which protects 80% of heritage and a lot of the environmental values of Ku-ring-gai and Bradfield, and I've talked about the benefits that I saw from that as well. Obviously, I think Ku-ring-gai Council is doing some good work to try and minimise loss of tree canopy. There's obviously more that needs to be done because we are losing it, it's a difficult problem to solve. The other thing I was going to mention was climate change, and I've touched on it, and the other candidates have touched on it to a large extent. I guess so. Set the scene, so the risks for Bradfield include more intense storms, so damage from storms, and also fires, because we're in a very leafy environment. And we've seen fires around the world, most recently in California, at the end of their winter. So, personally, I'm very concerned about this and believe that we need to address it. And so Andy and again others have talked about different solutions. I'll touch on or talk about one, which is electrification of transport. And I mentioned before some of the benefits of that, reduced pollution. Another big one for Australia is that 80% of our transport fuels are imported. So where our oil production is in decline, has been for a long time. So we buy that oil from overseas, we buy it at a price that's set on the international market. We buy it from people that aren't particularly friendly or don't have very good human rights records, and it has to be brought here through areas like over the sea, which might be contested. So the alternative and the benefit of this electrification is that we produce that renewable energy here and we can use it in our cars, and increasingly trucks, light trucks, local deliveries, and heavy deliveries. Maybe we need to move more to rail and so on. So I'll just put that there as a opportunity to a problem, or an opportunity to solve a problem.
Thank you, Martin. Louise.
Okay, so to answer this question, I think we need to start with that existential threat to every small business and every household: climate change. We, Labor, have transformed Australia's approach through a renewables-led energy commitment with 82% of renewables in the grid by 2030, cutting pollution from big emitters and legislating net zero by 2050. For local businesses, this is represented by subsidies for solar panels and the new 30% subsidy for home batteries. So something that, Andy, we very much support. The installation of community batteries, such as the one just down the road in Camaray. The new vehicle efficiency standards to give everyone, including businesses, access to cheaper and greener EV vehicles, all of which not only reduce emissions, but also empower small businesses with financial rewards. Another environmental issue in Bradfield is looking after our beautiful areas of biodiversity. If we're elected again, we'll continue to work on creating the EPA in a format that the Coalition and the Greens will finally empower us to deliver. It also means we will keep collaborating with New South Wales Labor on projects such as the Greener Neighbourhoods program, which has so far delivered $339,000 on grassroots projects such as the greening of St John's Avenue in Gordon, or the Labor grant of $366,000 to the Lane Cove National Park to regenerate that area. We're also delivering on policies that deal with the after effects of climate change. In Bradfield, the most obvious threat is clearly bushfires. So we've created the Disaster Fund, Ready Fund nationally, which helps small businesses recover, and we've just seen that play out in Queensland. And at a grassroots level, we gave funding for the new RFS station at Coolah Park. If I were elected, I'd do everything I could to help building on this foundation, to contain our emissions, to help our local businesses to afford to do this, and to help mitigate the impact of climate events on local businesses. And I'd certainly be opposing risky, expensive nuclear projects that divert focus from real solutions.
Thank you. So Giselle, what are the critical environmental issues facing Bradfield, and what specific commitments can you make?
Fantastic. So I am going to talk specifically about Bradfield. I think it's pretty clear that the biggest challenge for Bradfield, as is the same across Australia, is the tension between the fact that we need more homes and places to live and exist and play sport and so forth, and the preservation of our natural environment. I think that is the tension that we're all grappling with. It's the tension we've seen in the development of the Todds all up and down Bradfield It is why we've got so many local community groups who have been activated to ensure that our beautiful natural environment is preserved. But let's be very clear. The consequences of losing our environmental, the natural environment that surrounds Bradfield are significant from an economic perspective, a health perspective, and from an broader ecosystem perspective. The challenge is how we work as 3 levels of government to ensure that we find new and creative ways of fixing both problems at the same time. I hear every day about people saying, well, we're losing a tree, the tree canopies, and the next door neighbour's chopping down this tree because they're building more houses. And so we have to understand as a planning nation that is taking into account a growing population, how we are going to be able to do things differently to preserve our natural environment. I don't think you'll find a single person in this room that disagrees it's a priority. What we're struggling with is to find a way through where we preserve as much of it as possible. The second major thing, but that unfortunately is not something that sits within the preserve of the federal representative, but rather state and council. But the role of the federal candidate, the federal representative in the area, is to bring those communities together to make sure that we have the right support, the right infrastructure to make the right decisions about how that development is being made. But I'll mention one other big issue that I do think should be tackled at the national level. And that is the crisis we are facing as a result of microplastics seeping into our system. I feel like this is a sleeping issue that is already affecting our health. As a party, we know prevention is much better than a cure. And right now, one of the things that we need to be looking at as a nation, as well as globally, is understanding how it is that we're getting to a point that these types of microplastics are entering our system without any type of regulation. We are the party that introduced the single-use plastic. We are the party that looks at prevention. And so one of the things I look for the long-term preservation of our environment and our human health is microplastics.
Thank you, Giselle. And finally, Nicolette.
I did say at the beginning I'm not going to go after Giselle. It does pain me to have to agree with you again. It is. She's very eloquently put it. The big elephant in the room, the thing that I know, and I've spoken, like we've done 13,000 door knocks now, and apart from the potholes, it's Todd. It's housing. People want their kids to be able to move out of home eventually, but they can't afford it. We know property prices are so high here, so when we build more homes, it's not really affordable, right? Because property developers want to build here because they can make the most profit here. And so it is it is complex. Council's got a mammoth task, and congratulations for getting where you are now. I think people in the community are still very unhappy with the outcome. We could do it better. So much of why I'm bringing this up is I think 90% of this is how, not what. When we start to put people back in the centre of the decisions that impact us, and we bring people along, we listen to them, we work with what they have and their views and their ideas, we get better policy decisions for all of us. We may not agree with the outcomes, but we'll understand why we're trading off this one thing to give us this other, why we're possibly throwing a beautiful, lovely street with manor houses under the bus because we're getting an extra 6,000 affordable dwellings. I mean, that's a horrible example, but there are going to be trade-offs, and there will be very cranky people, and neighbours will be pitted against neighbours, as they currently are in places in that 400 metre zone, and this is not an environmental issue, it's a social issue, but we've got to be better at doing inclusive planning and listening to our neighbours and to the people who live here. And that goes too for protecting environmental areas of high biodiversity conservation value, like our blue gum high forest, like our Sydney turpentine, which is endemic to this area, which is very important It can't talk for itself, but there are many organisations in our community who can, and they also need a seat at the table. So just taking it up quickly to federal, I do say that we do have a role at a federal level in the housing accord. It's the thing that says state governments go and build this stuff. Where is the conditional relationship between GST tax, for example, and what happens in terms of how state governments enforce certain laws, if you like, in terms of how much, where and when on local councils? There is a role for federal government. I think it needs to be looked at. How does that happen? And federal EPA is going to make it so much simpler and easier and cut the tape for all of the state government inaction on approving renewable energy projects.
It is a challenge getting information out in 3 minutes, so congratulations on all of you on doing that consistently. We've finished the formal part of the evening. Now, I want to open up the floor again to questions, including environment, but anything else. If you have a question to ask, please keep it succinct and ask it as a question so we can get through as many as possible. Yes, gentleman at the back.
My question is, what are representatives looking at to do to control
Sorry,
housing
can you just, yeah, please, through the microphone.
I want to find out what the parties or what you are going to do moving forward with housing prices in Australia, because the housing prices from immigrants coming into Australia is not pushing up the price of housing. There's a demand, but they don't have the money for it. The money's coming from people who are non-residents of Australia. What are you going to do about maintaining our sovereignty of our lands? And that is a federal issue.
Would anyone like to respond?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
happy to take that. Thank you, sir. The answer to our housing crisis is complex, as you've rightly just alluded to, and involves changes on the supply and the demand side. There is no silver bullet for it. We have to address all of the issues that are facing this. Now, the Coalition has already announced that if we're in government, that we will put a ban on non-Australians from being able to purchase existing housing supply for the next 2 years. That's been put on the table. Well, we'll review it again. And this is the point. We just need to make sure that we're reviewing the system. You want flexible, well, I would like to see flexible, responsive government that looks at the situation as it develops. We know that we're definitely going to stop that from occurring now. We've got to make sure that Australians have their first opportunity to be able to get on the housing ladder. But that's not the full story, is it? We also need to ensure that we give increased access to capital, which is why we're giving access for first home buyers the opportunity to access $50,000 of their superannuation that they then have to pay back to ensure that they are able to put together their first deposit on their home. We're also giving that same access for women leaving relationships, because we know one of the largest groups of homelessness right now are women over 55, because they've been in relationships where they've had either no control over their household finances, or situations where there has been coercive control, where they've left the marriage and no longer have access. So we're giving them, as a first home buyer, the same opportunity as well to be able to access super. But we also have to do a lot on the supply side, and that's a very important part of the equation. And so I answered that. I answered that in the first instance, about 2 years. But that's the answer. That's the answer that the Coalition have put on the table for the people to judge on. We're the first to move on that, and we're the ones who understand that this issue is very complex. But we need to address both supply and demand.
Okay, would other candidates like to respond? Thank you.
Look, we're also offering the same thing. We're putting that 2-year ban on foreign investment. But as Giselle said, we do also believe this requires a multi-pronged approach. And we do have a checklist of things we're doing. We've got the Housing Accord, which I've mentioned previously, 1.2 million new houses. We're investing, we've invested $90 million in construction training. So we actually have the people to build the houses, and that includes where we've got shortfalls of skills, allowing new workers from overseas to come in and plug those gaps. We're also delivering our Housing Australia Future Fund, which looks after social and affordable housing. And as part of that, as Giselle also mentioned, we're looking after, I think it's 4,000 allocation for people that are fleeing domestic violence. One thing we're not doing though is suggesting that people use their superannuation to fund housing. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, the likelihood of having a young person having $50,000 just floating around in their super balance is highly unlikely. We worry about what that will mean at the other end when people are retiring and they have diminished superannuation balances. And then we've looked overseas. In New Zealand, they tried a very similar thing called Kiwi Saver. I'm not sure if anyone here has heard of it. This has been a disaster. They saw home ownership plunge 2.1% overall and 5.7% for under 35s. So that's not a policy that we're going to be following.
Thank you. Martin.
Look, thank you for your question. What I might do is actually just put forward a bit more detail on some of the Greens policies on housing. I'm not, to be honest, sure on the extent to which the issue you describe is a problem. So just quickly on Greens policies, and I didn't really mention before, but I think there's definitely a role for more social and affordable housing. In social housing, again, like home ownership, there's a multi-decadal downward trend in the amount of social housing that's available that the government actually constructs and makes available for people. And on affordable housing, and this is housing that you could call them essential services workers, which might include police and healthcare workers and all that sort of thing, but also the people that have to come to work in our communities, the cleaners, the people that look after our kids' childcare, the people that work in aged care, they need to live in our community rather than having to commute for an hour every day to get here. So that's just a couple of things. I'll put a personal observation out there, and we've sort of touched on it a couple of times tonight. I think the government has a difficult balancing act that they're trying to pull off, and that is you hear about shortages of labour in all areas, in all sorts of areas, in health, in building. So on the one hand, we need more people, but on the other hand, we've got this pressure on housing. So I'm not saying there's an easy solution. In fact, I think it's quite a difficult balancing act that governments have to try and manage.
Thank you, Martin.
Look, I agree with all the other candidates. Housing is a critical issue at the moment. It is a very complicated issue. It's an issue that I think all levels of government have to work collectively together to address. Obviously, this issue is caused by the supply and demand. Not enough homes getting delivered onto the market. Market entry is extremely high for young families and the everyday individual here in Australia. So we have to boost the supply up, and industry stakeholders in the housing market are finding it extremely difficult to deliver more homes. You've got the rise of cost, you've got inflation not under control, you've got high interest rates, and you've got government inefficiency. I think we've got far too many bureaucrats in the system. We've got to cut this red tape. We've got to cut government spending. We've got to ensure that we increase the productivity of government and increase the efficiency of government. That's very important. And we can actually also look at exploring things like modular homes and things that can get built cheaper and quicker to lift the pressure there in the marketplace. So it is a combination of a lot of... we've got to take on a pragmatic, holistic approach. Also, on immigration, cutting immigration will relieve to a certain degree, but also I think we've got to be very selective as to who we actually welcome into the country. I mean, I think immigration should be actually based on contribution to our nation. Those who are willing to contribute and fight for Australia economically and academically and drive Australia forward should be the ones we're focusing on and attracting and appreciating. And those who are here just to take advantage of this system and to really, hardly contribute, I mean, they should not be welcomed. So that's my own take on this. And I think, governments should be working collectively together to achieve the common goal on addressing the real issue rather than doing the big talks and and playing, focusing on party agendas. I think it's more about, a pragmatic approach on increasing the productivity and more supply.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, we've pretty much reached 8:30. If there is one very short question and short responses. Yes, Malcolm.
Thanks very much, Dale. There are a number of us who've put questions in the online and they haven't been able to get to tonight. Could I ask that they be circulated to all candidates and that we get a response back from each of them in the next 72 hours? And we can look online, because it'd be wonderful to hear the answers from the candidates on all those questions that we haven't got to tonight.
We will do that anyway, and we'll ask for a response. We don't have time for questions. No, we don't. I'm sorry. No, it's been a challenging evening, and we've covered an awful lot. I think the real opportunity tonight has been to listen to the candidates, to get a feel for who they are, to understand a little bit about their policies, and of course the candidates are available after tonight. So if you do have questions, please approach the candidates and have a conversation with them. I know they're all available. We're going to finish up with just a very quick summary from each of the candidates on their platform, and please keep it to a minute or 2 minutes. Nicolette, do you mind if I start with you? We'll go back to front.
Let's see if I can do it before the bell. Thank you. Oh, is that happening before? Oh, sorry. Oh, no? Okay. I'm going to let the MC, shall I keep going? Okay, just because we're on time. Sorry, I'm going to follow his lead, but let's talk afterwards. So to be super quick, 60 seconds, thank you again for coming and for engaging. And it has been fantastic and challenging. And yes, let's get your answers to the questions that you didn't get answered tonight, because we just have a few hours tonight. I am Nicolette Buller. I'm running because I believe that we have some structural problems that the major parties can't get done on housing, on cost of living, on climate. And as an independent in this next parliament, I think it's likely to be a minority government. And I think as a member of the crossbench in the 48th Parliament, I have the opportunity to work with whomever forms government to get the things done, and you know what they are because I've put them in writing to you, that we need, that I've heard we want solutions for the people of Bradfield and for our nation. And I'm hoping that I can earn your vote and to put me first on the ballot on May 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you also, everybody, for coming. And I agree, we would love the opportunity to engage with some more of those questions. I'm Giselle Kapterian. I'm the Liberal candidate for Bradfield. And I think what we've heard today, what you're seeing today, what you're feeling today, out on the street, in businesses, at home, paying your bills, we know we cannot afford another 3 years like this. Nobody feels better off. Well, I ask you, do you feel better off today than you did 3 years ago? And if the answer is no, well, we were going through COVID, but I will say this, we cannot afford as a country 3 more years of hard labour, and the only way to stop that from happening is to vote Liberal at the next election so that we can bring in a change of government, restore hope, restore aspiration, and restore good economic management to Australia so each and every single one of you can pursue your own version of happiness and build for the next generation moving forward. So thank you so much again.
I'd like to echo everyone else and thank you all for coming tonight. And I actually wanted to call out the young gentleman in the front here who is going to be voting for the first time. How wonderful to step up and take the time to make an informed decision. Well done. So, look, I just wanted to cover off what it means, what we can do with our vote. It's certainly very possible that we're going to have a minority government. However, one of the major parties will form government, and the leader of that party will be the Prime Minister. That Prime Minister will form the cabinet. The machinery of government will be in their hands. They will determine the budget and they will administer government departments. And this election is your chance to directly influence which party is going to lead the country. So I want you to think about who you want to manage the country. Do you want a Dutton-led coalition that, when last in power, gave us a decade of denial on climate change, that's led by a man voted by the doctors as the worst health minister ever, who has praised Trump as a big thinker, whose government has opposed every single cost of living measure? And I'm going to finish up really quickly. Or would you like to be led by my party, Labor, that during the last 3 very challenging years has seen inflation more than halved, seen wages go up and kept unemployment low? My party, Labor, gives me hope that the next generation inherits a fairer, greener and more prosperous Australia.
Thank you. Martin.
Okay. Thank you also from me for giving me the opportunity to present the case for the Greens. I hope that perhaps you've learned a few things, you have a greater appreciation for some of the Greens' policies. As I think I said earlier, the Greens will be a minority force in the government. We think we get better out of the major parties. We think we push them on important issues and get better results. And I'm pleased to say that I think we lead the way with a progressive agenda. So thank you, everybody, and I'm happy to stay around and talk later and answer more questions in detail if you like.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being in a wonderful crowd, and thanks to the Ku-ring-gai Chamber of Commerce for putting democracy in action, where we get to hear from all the candidates and get to answer questions. I'm Adrienne. I'm an independent candidate here in Bradfield. I'm standing up because I genuinely care about the community and local constituents, and I want to address your issues. Major parties from both sides of politics have been around, and I think there are concerns around the accountability and transparency and integrity in many of them in our parliament. And I think one thing that I can pledge here today is I will be listening and actively listening to every single one of you and do what I can as an independent. I'm not promising that I can get all the changes made and provide all the solutions, but I will definitely be putting all the options onto the table and consulting to the right people and listening to the right people and asking for the advice on implementing change in our system today so that tomorrow you are better off than today. So thank you so much. I'm Adrienne.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to thank all the candidates for their effort in coming along tonight and giving us an insight into their thoughts and their policies in the upcoming election. So could you please join me in thanking the candidates? We would, of course, have liked to have a lot more questions, but the candidates are around. And if you have questions that you'd like to present through us or directly to the candidates, please contact them directly. Just a reminder, of course, that Election Day is on the 3rd of May and early voting starts on the 22nd of April. Thank you very much for attending tonight. Cheers.